What's up, everybody? This is Life and Anxiety, and this is going to be part two of a horror film you've overlooked. And I don't want to talk too much because I kind of left it at a cliffhanger. And if you haven't seen the movie, then that's no good place to stop. So we're going to get right into it. This is Life and Anxiety, and we're getting more into the deep dive of Silent Hill Part 2. Let's go.
What is that? Holy Jesus.
Sometime after the crash, Rose wakes up in her SUV with all the doors open, and Sharon is missing. She steps outside, and the air around her is full of this dense like fog. A white substance, which resembles snow, is lightly but continuously falling from the sky. But upon touching the substance, Rose realizes that it's ash. So far, the police officer and Sharon are nowhere in sight, and suddenly Rose spots a young child that looks very much like her adopted daughter Sharon. Rose continues to follow her until Rose is led to a stairwell that seems to be descending downwards. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a piercing alarm screeches through the sky, and darkness begins to engulf the entire town. Once the darkness fully encompasses the town, things become eerily quiet. Despite this odd phenomenon, Rose carries on, but before she can continue, she starts to encounter grotesque, dark, nightmarish creatures that seem to appear out of the darkness. Horrified, Rose tries desperately to escape these creatures, but they begin to lunge at her and grasp at her clothes. Rose falls onto the ground while the disturbing creatures advance, encircling her. Then, abruptly as it appeared, the darkness begins to dissipate, and the monstrous creatures are reduced to ashes. Unfortunately, during the pursuit, Rose fainted, waking up finding herself inside a diner. With the darkness gone, she is left relieved, but also horrified. After coming to full consciousness, Rose walks the streets of Silent Hill and comes upon an older woman in tattered clothes. The two have a conversation, but the older woman is speaking very cryptically.
We've all lost our children. Our light.
She tells Rose that only the Dark One opens and closes the road to Silent Hill.
Only the Dark One opens and closes the door to Silent Hill. Please.
This is the first time we hear the name Alessa, which is a prominent figure in this movie. The older lady explains that the townspeople hurt her child, which happened to be Alessa.
Listen.
During the conversation, Rose brandishes a heart locket necklace with a picture of Sharon and asks the lady in tattered clothing if she has seen her daughter. Upon inspecting the picture, the older lady begins screaming, "She's mine!" clutching at the necklace as a frightened Rose scurries away. Meanwhile, Christopher is looking for Rose. He makes his way to Silent Hill and finds a broken open gate, the one that Rose had smashed through. At this point in time, it is apparent that Rose and Christopher are in two different places, one being the real world and the other an alternate world, Silent Hill.
Rose.
Back in Silent Hill, the police officer finally catches up to Rose, who has seemingly been knocked out this entire time that Rose has been exploring the town. Rose tries to explain to the officer that something is extremely wrong with this town,
Why aren't you listening to me?
but the officer ignores her cries and places her in handcuffs.
You're under arrest. What?
You have the right to remain silent.
Why?
Anything you say
What
can
the
and will
hell
be used
for?
against you in a court of law.
I don't think you understand. There's something weird going on here.
While this is taking place, a figure starts approaching the officer in our handcuffed Rose. The officer shouts to the figure, informing him or her that she is a police officer and not to worry.
I'm a police officer!
It's not until this figure comes into sight that panic ensues between the two. What seems to be a crooked-legged figure with no arms and a circular midsection begins to approach the two. Its skin black and dark, with no features to its face, it spews out this dark-like substance at Rose and the officer, striking the officer's jacket, which instantly begins to disintegrate.
Stop!
The officer quickly throws aside her jacket as it continues to dissolve and proceeds to shoot the creature, ultimately subduing it. Frantic with Sharon still on her mind, Rose runs away from the officer and the subdued creature and heads towards the town school in hopes of finding her daughter. Continuing her search for Sharon, Rose finds herself in a classroom examining a child's desk. The desk has the word witch carved into it. Then, Rose suddenly spots a child that closely resembles Sharon and chases her into the bathroom. Once in the bathroom, the child has seemed to have completely vanished, but what she finds in the bathroom is even more deeply disturbing than what she has found in Silent Hill thus far. Disturbed Rose backs away from this grotesque scene and heads straight towards the door, only to find men covered in plastic suits searching the school. It's important to note that this indicates that there are more townspeople other than the old woman in the tattered clothes that we saw earlier. Frightened, Rose pins herself against the door in an attempt to keep these mysterious people from entering. It seems that they are just about to break their way through the door when all of a sudden the alarm bell goes off, indicating that the darkness is coming once again, and the mysterious individuals run off. Unfortunately, Rose is in for another not so pleasant ride through the darkness of Silent Hill.
What's happening again?
Fortunately for Rose, she escapes the creatures of the darkness once again, clearly unscathed for a second time. She eventually meets up with a police officer and another townsperson who urges them to take shelter with her at the church.
We gotta go.
But before they make it to the church, we are greeted with yet again another gruesome scene. A large monstrous being appears out of the darkness, its head encased in what seems like a metal pyramid, grabs the townsgirl and tears her apart, splattering blood all over Rose and the officer as they step foot into the safety of the church. Inside the safety of the church, the townspeople of Silent Hill look on, bewildered at the blood-drenched pair that stand before them, almost as if they had not seen a newcomer in ages. Bewilderment turns into blaming and shunning, while the townspeople become mob-like, upset and pointing the finger at Rose and the officer for the death of their fellow townsperson. The townspeople begin to encircle the pair until the officer lets off a shot into the air, which the townspeople respond by retreating from the two. This is when we are introduced to the matriarch of the town. Her name is Christabella. She has a powerful influence over the people of Silent Hill and uses her religious beliefs to justify the way in which she rules and carries out punishments.
They gave her to the fiend. Went alone outside into the devil's playground. Went against our laws.
Once everything settles down, and after a bit of praying, Rose tells her story to Christabella, how she is looking for her daughter Sharon. Christabella tells Rose that only the Dark One knows where Sharon may be, yet no one dares ventures where she resides.
I've lost my little girl. Only the demon knows where she is.
Despite any warnings, Rose volunteers to go and seek out the Dark One, Alessa.
Then tell me, where do I find this demon?
Take this. They'll be drawn to the light.
On her way down the elevator shaft, Christabella hands Rose back her locket, but while doing so, it pops open, revealing the picture of Sharon. As soon as Christabella sees the picture of Sharon, she quickly condemns Rose and the officer as witches. This is because Sharon looks exactly as Alessa did as a child.
Her child's the likeness of Alessa. Witch!
Christabella's henchmen try to retrieve Rose from the elevator shaft, but the officer sends it downward, essentially sacrificing her own safety as she is beaten savagely.
Find her.
On her route to seek out Alessa, Rose faces the challenges of navigating a desolate hospital filled with terrifying creatures. Back at the church, the townspeople had found Sharon and tied the officer to a wooden structure in preparations to burn her. The officer shouts at the people, calling them insane. Despite her pleas, the townspeople lower her over a roaring fire while she burns to death. Her last words are, "Don't let her watch," referring to Sharon.
Vanquish evil!
It's crazy.
Once Rose makes it to Alessa, much more is revealed, which paints a much darker picture of the townspeople of Silent Hill, and especially of their matriarch, Christabella.
You did it. The reward. The truth.
Upon entering Alessa's hospital room, she encounters the real entity behind the darkness and the atrocities taking place in Silent Hill. This entity poses as a child that closely resembles Alessa.
She is Alessa.
Then who are you?
I have many names.
It is revealed that the townspeople inflicted great pain onto Alessa as a child. She was essentially an outcast as she did not have a father in the picture. She became the scapegoat for the town's problems. This is where Christabella and her religious cult steps in. Christabella insists to Alessa's mother that Alessa must be cleansed and that she is evil. Reluctantly, Alessa's mother agrees, not knowing the extent of the torture Alessa is about to endure.
You won't just name the Father. Sin amongst us. People must gather in judgment. Trust us down here.
Before the cleansing can begin, Alessa's mother, who happens to be Christabella's sister, is restrained from entering the chamber. Christabella has a young Alessa strapped to an iron structure, suspended in the air by chains as fiery coals burn only a few feet under her. This badly burns Alessa from head to toe.
We fight the sin, not the sinner.
Fortunately, One of the chains break, and Alessa is spared from any more torment. This also starts the coal fire raging underneath of Silent Hill. An innocent Alessa is then saved by a police officer, which takes her to the hospital.
On you.
While at the hospital, Alessa's sadness, pain, loneliness, and sense of betrayal by her mother turn into anger. Her anger becomes so great that it summons an evil entity. This entity offers Alessa revenge on the people that caused her suffering, and that if she agrees to this entity's offer, then Silent Hill will be plunged into a world of darkness of Alessa's making. This is how Alessa's Silent Hill is born. In order for Alessa to plunge Silent Hill into complete darkness, she had to rid herself of her innocence, which she did 30 years ago. And this is how Sharon came to be, who was in turn adopted by Rose and Chris outside in the real world. 30 years have passed, but Alessa and the Dark Entity have not been able to enter the townspeople's church to put an end to Christabella and the townspeople. Their blind conviction repels the Dark Entity from entering.
Conviction repels me from their church, but you can.
In order to save Sharon and help Alessa exact revenge, Rose makes a deal to help the Dark Entity enter the church and put an end to the nightmare of Silent Hill. With Rose's help, Sharon is saved and returned to the real world to Christopher. Unfortunately, Rose still seems to be in an alternate world, as only one could return. As for the townspeople, they were put to an end by the hands of Alessa and the Dark Entity. I know this video may have been a bit graphic, but it's one of my favorites, and I urge you to check out the film to get the full experience. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Until next time, this is Life and Anxiety. We'll hit you with another deep dive sometime in the future. This is me. Peacing out. Peace. Thank you.